In the last episode, I had a chat with Aaron Zaga, CMO at Newton, a direct-to-consumer baby slate brand, and we talked about how to scale and measure influencer marketing. Today, on episode number 66, get ready. Michael Houlihan, a New York Times best-selling author and the founder of one of America's best-known wine brands, is on the podcast today, and that brand is, well, Barefoot Wines. Now, we'll be discussing unorthodox marketing strategies that can easily be applied to e-commerce businesses. Now, those are strategies that's helped make Barefoot Wines one of the leading wine brands in America. I'm your host, Raphael Paulin-Daigle, and I'm the founder of SplitBase. This is Minds of E-commerce. Now, this episode is brought to you by SplitBase. At SplitBase, we help leading 8- and 9-figure brands such as Dr. Squatch, Hyperice, and Amica grow through customer-focused conversion optimization programs. We find out where your website's leaking most money, and then, well, we help you fix it. The result, you get increased conversions, higher AOV, and of course, more money to allow you to scale advertising profitably. Now, we've been at it for a decade and can help you manage the entire conversion optimization process from A to Z, from design to landing pages to development and, of course, strategy. So go to splitbase.com today to learn how we can help you get the most out of your marketing spend. All right, Michael, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Raphael.
Now, as you know, this podcast is all about going deep. And I'm sure we could have a conversation that spans hours with your knowledge and with your experience. But, today you mentioned that you've got some very specific strategies that you'd like to share about how you've grown Barefoot Wines that can easily be applied to e-commerce. So, love to dive deep into that. But before, maybe just for maybe some of our international listeners or people that aren't familiar with Barefoot, and I'm sure that's very few people, but can you give us a bit of a highlight reel as to what is Barefoot Wines today?
Right. Well, here's 20 years of history in 5 minutes. So Bonnie and I got together, and after I'd been with her for about a year, she asked me to collect an overdue bill for one of her clients. And she was an office manager at the time, and she was managing an office for a grower up in Sonoma County who was growing grapes and selling them to wineries. Well, the wineries didn't pay, and he was owed about $300,000. So she asked me to go collect it. And in the process of collecting it, I realized that the only way I was going to get anything out of these wineries, especially the bankrupt one, was trading goods and services for money. Instead of getting paid money, I got paid wine and I got paid bottling services. Well, that's great if you know what to do with it, So I went back and told Bonnie. She says, well, that's great, but it isn't going to pay any of our bills. I said, well, we'll come up with a marketing plan and find some buyers. How hard could that be? How long could that take? Well, it took 20 years, but we didn't know it at the time. So in other words, Barefoot wouldn't have been here if we had known what we were getting into. So with that said, I just want your listeners to realize that, and this is a good segue, when we got started, of course, we went to the largest buyers and they said, well, are you going to advertise this? We're not going to put it in because nobody knows Barefoot. It's not going to sell. Nobody knows this brand. How are you going to get the word out there? And we said, well, we don't have any money for advertising. What we have is really, a debt, which we converted into assets that we're going to try to market to pay off the debt and make a few dollars and go down the road. And he says, the chain stores aren't going to take it. The box stores aren't going to take it. Nobody's going to touch it because it's not known. I said, well, what am I going to do then? And they said, well, you're going to have to sell it to every mom and papa and every corner grocery store and every independent because the chains won't touch you. And so going out and, doing that, I was asked the same question. Are you guys going to advertise this? I've never seen this brand before. So it was the same problem, that we all have, which is how do you get the word out about the goods and services that you're providing for your potential clients?
Right.
And one day I get a call from this guy from Chinatown in San Francisco. He's a neighborhood association. And he says, "Oh, you're a rich winery guy. I just need $50,000 to complete my fund for a kids after school park. We're going to buy some swings and some slides and, a jungle gym." And I thought to myself, boy, I said, "Are you sure you have the right number, pal? Because I don't have a dime." I said, "I don't even have $5,000. I said, "But I'll tell you what, I do have a lot of wine and it's unsold, and we're trying to sell it. So I will give it to you, some of it, for your fundraiser. And maybe it'll loosen some people up and they'll write a bigger check, or maybe you can auction it off and buy some slides and swings if you want." And he wasn't really excited about that, and we didn't hear from him again. But when we got the reports for sales in the San Francisco city limits, we noticed that Barefoot was taking off in the Chinatown neighborhood.
Mm.
And we couldn't believe it. So we went to the stores. They were all mom and pop, little independents that I had personally sold. And yep, it was flying off the shelves. So we couldn't figure out what had happened until we realized, oh, remember that guy from Chinatown? I wonder if the people who went to his fundraiser saw us and figured that we were supporting their group, and maybe it gave them a social reason to
Mm.
buy our product, which is obviously more important than a mercantile reason like price and quality. That would be mercantile. But
Right.
an emotional and social reason might be, hey, these guys support us. I want to support them. See, so that's what we called worthy cause marketing. We didn't have a
Mm.
Stanford grad on board to call it cause marketing or anything like that. So this was the first time in commerce that we actually used nonprofit organizations and their organization and their communications network to get the word out about our product. And we
Mm.
did it in several ways. First of all, we donated goods which they could use for auctions and whatnot. Now, if you're into services, you can donate services. And the second thing we did was we made sure that our name was up big and bold, only at fundraisers, only where they were trying to raise money, because we knew that the people who came to the fundraiser were qualified buyers for our products.
Mm.
We also required that we were allowed to put a form down in front of everybody's plate at the $100 a plate dinner that said, "Yeah, we're Barefoot, and here's why we support your group, and we love what you're doing. And here are the stores that are right close to where you are right now that you could go buy this." And so
Mm.
that's how we did it, from like city to city, community to community, and across the United States. And when we had the money for commercial advertising, we continued to use this social means of advertising because, quite frankly, it was more effective. Because if you're going to put up a road sign or do a radio ad, that's blasting out, you're using a shotgun, you're hoping to hit a duck. But this is more of an aimed rifle shot. You're working with a company or with an organization that already exists. It's already grouped, and get this, their members are in the neighborhood where the store is that sells your product or where the service that you're offering is. So this turns out to be more of a way of looking at marketing in a very concentrated, a deliberate way, where you
Mm.
say, all right, if we're going to sell in this neighborhood, what's important to the neighborhood? What
Right.
organization does this neighborhood already belong to? What are they trying to do here? How can we help them? And we did other things, like we would take their goals and put them on our bottles in the store. And it would say, such and such an organization is trying to clean up the creek. They're going to have a fundraiser, be there or be square type thing. And what that did is it gave the members of the organization that social reason. So we were turning basically nonprofit members into advocates for our products.
Hmm.
So that's it in a nutshell. I know we only have 15 minutes, but
Mm, Well, I'm
now we
curious,
can.
Michael. Like, what I think this is such an interesting strategy, but how do you go about choosing those organizations? And I'm thinking, right, like a lot of people listening might be online businesses where a lot of them does have a retail presence, some doesn't, right? So I'm wondering how would they go about doing this?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do is say, where is the nonprofit that has the most members that are qualified for my goods and services, whether I sell them online or in retail? What are those organizations? So that would be one list. Another list might be, um, you know, what are the organizations that I can identify with that means something to me in my
Yeah.
life? Whether it's cleaning up the creeks or saving the parks or whatever, or educating the kids or keeping them off the street after school, whatever is important to you, because you want your passion to be part of that advertising effort. Then the other thing is you can begin by identifying the groups, go and talk to them. Maybe two or three will be disqualified. And you can talk to them online. Just have a Zoom with them and say, hey, I want to talk to you about promoting your organization's goals. Who do I talk
Mm,
to? And so that's the way to get started. I know that we met a guy who was selling fishing tackle, and basically uh, fishing lures is what he was selling.
right.
And so what he did is he put himself together with the largest group in the country that was trying to save the rivers and make the rivers wild. So basically, take down the dams and stuff. Well, that's what fishermen want. See, so there's that way of looking at it. So you can make these stacks up. Like who's qualified, who do I passionately identify with, and what groups have or can use the products I'm selling. See,
Mm.
and then you help them promote what they're doing. So that's where you get started. It's with these different stacks of folks.
Amazing. One thing that I'm thinking of as you're talking about this that I find interesting is a lot of brands, even e-commerce brands, are associating themselves with charities, but very often, instead of using the charity as a way to get additional reach, they're only showing it as a badge to help, convince people that, it's worthy of buying. Your approach goes beyond just showing, hey, we care about charities, you should buy from us because our competitors probably doesn't care about the charities. Your approach takes the charities as a way to get reach.
Amen. And let me just say this. This is the difference between what they call today cause marketing and what we
Mm,
called worthy cause marketing. Now, in cause marketing, yes, you're going after a badge. You're bragging basically to the general public that I support the American Cancer Association, and that's why you should buy my product. See? The other one is much quieter than that and much more humble, and much more subtle, and much more
hmm
stealthy. Because what it's doing is saying, aha, here's an organization that's already communicating with itself, and they're tight, and they have goals. And so if you identify with the goals and you realize that there's ways that you can promote them, like you can write something on their site, you can write a post on their LinkedIn page, and drive them back to your page. There's a lot of different things you can do to make the link. So it's link and leverage, right? So that's the difference between cause marketing and worthy cause marketing. Remember, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the members of the nonprofit to have a social reason to buy your products.
hmm Very
Members.
important.
And by going after the members, yes, it's less people than the whole world. Yes, it's less people than the big, broad funnel top. But you're already down the funnel quite a ways. So you're not working as hard because you've already got this core people that are actually helping you promote your product. So, like, do you want customers or do you want advocates? Most
Hmm.
people who've been in business for a while say they want advocates because they know that they have turnover and they constantly need new customers.
Fantastic. Now, how does this scale? Is this something that you only do when you're starting out? But I'm thinking, like in the case of Barefoot Wines, right? Like this is a brand that's scaled immensely over the past 20 years. So is that an approach? I'm sure, of course, you don't need this approach anymore today. But how does it scale, and how did it scale in your case with the brand as
Okay,
it
well,
grew?
first of all, I sold the brand to E&J Gowell, and they hired me to basically show them how we did it because they
Mm,
wanted to know how we had gotten away doing this. What was the key here? And so we worked for them as consultants and helped them do this. And they did it for the next 10 or 15 years.
well,
And that really blew it up. Uh, so I would say that it's an excellent, it's not the be all end all, this is it, got it, run with it. No, this is more like one of the many ways that you can scale your business. And it certainly is an important way to build loyalty. If you want brand loyalty, this is where that aspect of your marketing program comes. This is probably the most efficient way to build brand loyalty, aside from a great
mm.
product, aside from a great customer service. See,
How would you recommend approaching this as brand scale? Is it you target more organization? Is it, you just scale with the organizations that you picked? How does that type of program evolve when the brand gets bigger?
when the brand gets bigger, you start to realize what it is that you're selling the most of. You also start to realize from analysis on your site where those first buyers are coming from. And so that gives you a big clue as to where you should put your energy
Mm,
in searching for nonprofits that have something to do that identify with those groups. So as you become larger, it's like driving an old-fashioned stick shift car. Obviously, in first gear, you're burning up a lot of energy and you're not moving very fast. But by the time you get to fourth gear, you're cruising. Well, it's a different strategy in every gear. And that's the thing you've got to remember. So when you're an enterprise, see, there's startup, then there's buildup. Okay. Startup, you don't have a cash flow. Buildup, you have a cash flow. Okay. Then there's build out. That's when you start to expand. And then there's enterprise. Okay. So enterprise is what you're talking about here. And the advantage to enterprise is it gives a big company a softer face with the general
mm,
public. It really helps their image. And, people talk about, what is the brand promise, they say? What does this brand stand for? If I'm going to spend my money, I want to make sure it's going somewhere where I'm going to make a difference. See? So it's not just getting the mercantile thing that they mail to you. That's not it.
right.
It's the feeling inside, it's the emotional feeling that this person that you're doing business with uh, has stands for something bigger than the goods and services they're selling. And you identify with that. So as you become bigger, yes, you can go for more broader nonprofits and movements. You can go for like a whole movement. Obviously,
Mm,
conservation is a movement.
right.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
Clean oceans, that's a movement. Clean water, that's a movement. Education, that's a movement. Theater, that's a movement. So those are the kinds of things that have to do with our human experience that everybody can identify with. So when you move in that direction, instead of trying to compare yourself to your competition, I mean, you only have one competition, and that's you last year. That's your competition.
Love that.
See, and if you get better than your competition, which is you last year, you don't have to worry about the other guys.
Fantastic. Michael, in the very little time that we've got left, if you had to start Barefoot Wines all over again, what would you do differently?
Well, I'd take a lot more aspirin, that's for sure. Uh, what would I do differently? Well, I would not have expanded into areas that I could not manage. I didn't realize how much management was required And this is
Mm.
why online seems so efficient because you're cutting out the middleman, you're cutting out the distributor, right? Uh, but even then, you have returns and you've got to deal with who did you subcontract with for fulfillment and are they doing the job and what do those reports look like? So I would have spent more time being sober about the implications of sales rather than just trying to make them. I would say,
Mm. I
because
love that.
all businesses are service businesses. They think they're selling a product, but they're all selling a service. And the service is, I stand behind what I sell you. I'll replace it if it doesn't work. I'm going to educate you as to how to use it. You know, and I mean, yeah, we're all going for the 5-star rating, right? But that starts with the first introduction. It's like, is it easy for them to use?
Yeah.
Do you have good videos that describe exactly how to use your products? Or do you have the kind of endorsements that you need from people that they respect? Those are the kinds you start there and then you build from there. But that's what I would have done differently. I was too busy trying to establish a cash flow, so I outsold our ability to monitor what was going on.
Mm. Such a great lesson. We've been
Yeah.
talking to Michael Houlihan, co-author of New York Times best-selling book, The Barefoot Spirit, and also, of course, founder of Barefoot Wines. Now, Michael, where can people learn more about you, connect with you?
Okay, so you can go to our website, which is www.thebarefootspirit.com, and you'll find hundreds of articles there on business and hiring and scaling and everything that you're faced with in your business. And we'll give you the benefit of our background, our experience. So you get like 20 years of experience on that site. And it's all in plain English. It's all just like street language. There's no fancy stuff.
I love it. Michael, thank you so much. It was an honor having you on the show. Thanks so much for all those insights.
Thank you.